Hello, I am Donovan Harris, and I worked on Afterburn, an arcade-style infinite car runner made in Unity. When building the game, one of the things I spent the most time on wasn't just adding features, but actually balancing how everything feels to play. It's one thing to get systems working, but it's a completely different thing to make them feel good and fair in actual gameplay. The two biggest areas I ended up iterating on were the hazard difficulty system and the coin-based progression system. Now, at the beginning of development, the hazard system was very simple and honestly a little bit too forgiving. At that point, hazards were mostly spawning one at a time and the speed was fairly consistent. On paper, that sounds fine, but once I actually started testing the game properly, I noticed something pretty quickly, and that were that players were lasting way too long without feeling too much pressure. And when that happens in a game like this, it starts to lose tension and becomes more like driving than surviving, and it makes the overall game feel a bit boring and dull. So I went back and started adjusting the system. I didn't want to just make it harder instantly because that feels unfair. So instead, I added a gradual scaling system. Now, hazards start off simple, but they increase over time, going from 1 to 2, and eventually 3 road blockers per spawn. At the same time, the speed of everything coming toward the player also increases. This helped a lot because it creates a proper curve. The game now starts in a very readable and comfortable state, but slowly builds into something much more intense the longer you survive. The second thing I had to balance was the economy system, which is basically how coins and car unlocks work. At first, the idea was simple: collect coins, unlock cars, but in practice, the pacing was off. The prices I set originally made it take a bit too long to unlock anything meaningful. And when progression feels slow, the players stop feeling rewarded for what they're doing in the moment. So I went back and I adjusted the cost, lowering them so that unlocking the new vehicles feels a bit more achievable and not a slog. I feel this also ties better into the loop of the game, because now every run feels like it contributes towards something. Even if you don't break your high score, you're still progressing towards getting a new vehicle, and it won't take you an hour of playing just for one new vehicle. So, overall, these two systems, difficulty and economy, ended up being the most important parts of balancing the game. Once they were adjusted, the game felt a lot more consistent, more fair, and more rewarding overall to play over longer sessions.